Welcome to The Debate. Today, we are stripping away all the promotional noise, all the cable TV hype, to focus squarely on the financials. We're looking at the probability metrics of the upcoming January 31st clash, Madison Square Garden. Shakur Stevenson versus Teofimo Lopez.
A fight that is shaping up to be, well, an absolute nightmare for the odds makers, I'd say.
It is certainly causing some sleepless nights in Vegas. So the central question we're tackling today is, I think, simple in concept, but financially critical for anyone looking to place a wager. Is the smart money on the cold, the mathematical precision of Shakur Stevenson, or is the betting market just drastically underestimating the chaos factor of Teofimo Lopez?
It's the classic clash, isn't it? The algorithm versus the anomaly.
Precisely. And with the odds shifting so much in the last week, Shakur tightening from an opener of, minus 360 down to minus 275, this fight is a perfect case study. It's consistent metrics versus these high variance explosions. So for my side, I'm arguing that Shakur Stevenson at minus 275 is safe money. I believe he represents a near mathematical certainty due to suppression metrics that are, frankly, unprecedented.
And I'm here as the value hunter to tell you that you are overpaying for that safety. I'm arguing Teofimo Lopez at plus 250 is a statistical steal. We are looking at a fighter who historically just defies the models, and I'm going to show you why the takeover is the only play with real asymmetric upside on the board.
Okay, let's get right into it then. I want to start by anchoring my thesis in the most recent and I'd argue most relevant data point. We have to talk about Shakur's masterclass against William Zepeda. That was July 2025. You have to remember the context here. Before that fight, the narrative was that Zepeda's volume was this unstoppable force. The guy was averaging 94 punches thrown per round. That is a suffocating number.
It was. Yeah, and more importantly, he was landing a significant chunk of those against high-level guys. He wasn't just, throwing at gloves. He was bruising people.
Correct. He was landing 31 punches per round on average. But what happened when he stepped in with Stevenson? The CompuBox data tells the entire story. Shakur Stevenson didn't just beat William Zepeda. He deleted him. He limited a machine who throws 94 times a round to just 23 landed punches per round. And here's the kicker. 23 landed punches is actually high for a Shakur opponent, the core defensive stat that justifies this minus 275 price tag, and frankly suggests it should be higher, is this. Historically, over his last 10 fights, opponents land an average of just 5.4 punches per round.
5.4, that's an absurd number, I'll grant you that. It barely sounds real.
It's statistical suppression. Shakur doesn't rely on moments, he doesn't rely on luck or a puncher's chance. He relies on what I call suppression algorithms. He manages distance so precisely, down to the half inch, that the opponent's output becomes totally irrelevant. You look at that Zepeda fight again. Zepeda threw 103 punches in back-to-back rounds, the second and the third, desperately trying to break that shell. And the result? He hit air. And Shakur posted a 56% connect rate on his own power punches in return.
Okay, but Zepeda is a straight-line fighter. He's predictable.
He's a volume pressure fighter, which was supposed to be the stylistic kryptonite to a boxer mover. So my conclusion is simple. At minus 275, the books are giving you a discount on perfection. This is not a gamble. It's an investment in consistency. You're paying a premium for a stock that has historically proven it doesn't crash, regardless of...
See, that's where you lose me. You're talking about stocks, consistency, suppression algorithms, but boxing isn't a spreadsheet, and Teofimo Lopez certainly isn't a stock you can model with traditional metrics. I'm looking at the volatility index of Teofimo Lopez. You want to talk investment? Let's talk return on investment, the ROI, when you bet on Teofimo specifically as an underdog.
That is a very short list.
It's a short list, but it's a massively profitable one. Teofimo Lopez defies the algorithms. Specifically, look at his history. When he fought Josh Taylor, the undisputed champion at 140, a guy nobody thought he could beat, Teo was a plus 330 underdog. What did he do? Won clearly. When he fought Vasily Lomachenko, the Matrix, the guy everyone said was unbeatable, using the exact same language you're using about Shakur now, he was a plus 310 underdog. He won clearly.
I would argue those were specific stylistic matchups that favored him, though.
They were matchups against technicians that the book said he couldn't beat. The pattern is just undeniable. Teofimo Lopez only fails when he's the favorite.
Look at the data. He was a minus 1250 favorite against George Kambosos and lost. He was a minus 2000 favorite against Sandor Martin, and frankly, he was lucky to get out of there with a split decision.
But doesn't that support my point about his inconsistency? If I'm betting real money, I don't want a guy who fights down to his competition.
No, it supports my points about his psychology. Teofimo Lopez shows up when the world bets against him. He feeds on that doubt. The market is mispricing the takeover because they're factoring in that Sandor Martin performance and ignoring the Josh Taylor performance. Plus 250 is massive value for a fighter who historically only activates his A game when the odds are stacked against him. You're advising people to lay 275 juice on a guy moving up to fight a natural 140-pounder. I'm getting plus 250 on a guy who has cleaned out the best in two divisions, specifically when he wasn't supposed to.
I see why you prioritize that narrative, the big game hunter thing, but let me give you a different perspective on the market movement itself. Let's look at the odds movement logs. Shakur opened at minus 360. That was the sharp line, the line set by the professional originators. It has since dropped to minus 275. Now, you might see that as smart money coming in on Lopez. I see it as public sentimentality chasing a bigger payout.
I disagree completely. I think the sharp money is fading Shakur because of the size difference. You can't ignore the physics here. Look at the amateur pedigree research brief we have. This isn't just about weigh-in day. Back in the 2013-2016 cycle, Shakur Stevenson was a 123-pound bantamweight. Teofimo Lopez was already a 132-pound lightweight. That is a massive difference in frame development.
We're referencing amateur records from a decade ago? Surely their current conditioning is more relevant?
It matters because it establishes their natural skeletal density. Teo has been the bigger man for 10 years. He has a 140-pound frame that is filled out naturally. Shakur is, well, he's a ballooned-up featherweight in comparison. You're asking a guy who is fighting at 123 to handle the physical explosion and the clinch strength of a guy who is filled out at 140. That line dropping from negative 360 to negative 275 isn't sentimentality. It's people realizing that weight classes exist for a reason. When they clinch, Shakur is going to feel that.
I'm just not convinced by that because weight classes haven't mattered for Shakur's efficiency yet. He moved up to lightweight, dominated. Moved up to super featherweight, dominated. The efficiency remains constant. Referencing the Zepeda fight again, Shakur landed cleaner regardless of size. A 56% power punch connect rate is absurd. That means when Shakur decides to throw a power shot, more often than not, it lands. It doesn't matter if Tail's 10 pounds heavier naturally. If he can't find Shakur's chin, that weight is just luggage he's carrying around the ring.
But Teofimo isn't Zepeda. He's not just going to walk forward and eat jabs. This brings us to the style matchup. We have to talk about the chess match versus car crash narrative.
Which is exactly why I favor the chess player. In a chaotic system, the one who imposes order usually wins.
Not so fast. Look at the Jamoin-Ortiz fight from February 2024. Ortiz is a mover, a technician, very similar to Shakur in terms of footwork and switch hitting. Teofimo struggled with that movement, I'll admit it. He looked frustrated for large parts of that fight. But how did he win? He stole the fight by throwing a fight-high 36 power punches in round 12. He realized he couldn't outbox him, so he just decided to create a car crash in the final 3 minutes.
And you think he can do that to Shakur?
I think Shakur gives him the opportunity to do that. Look at Shakur's fight against Edwin De Los Santos. Shakur landed a historically low 65 total punches in that entire fight. It was a snooze fest. If Shakur goes into that snooze fest shell, where he's content to land 3 jabs around and move, Teofimo's explosive athleticism allows him to steal rounds with these 30-second bursts. He doesn't need to win 3 minutes of boxing. He just needs to be the only one doing something memorable when the bell rings.
That is a dangerous comparison. You're comparing Jermaine Ortiz to Shakur Stevenson. That's like comparing a Toyota Camry to a Formula One car just because they both have 4 wheels. Shakur is a far more punitive counterpuncher than Ortiz. Ortiz moves to survive. Shakur moves to set traps.
Is he, though? De Los Santos didn't pay a price. He just got bored.
De Los Santos refused to engage because he felt the trap. He knew if he overcommitted, he'd get clipped. Teofimo relies on his opponent making mistakes. That's the car crash theory. You need the other guy to drive into oncoming traffic. Shakur makes 0 mistakes. If Teofimo tries to explode like he did against Taylor or in that 12th round against Ortiz, he will be hitting air. And unlike Ortiz, Shakur will make him pay with a check hook that Teo won't see coming. You're banking on Teo creating chaos, but you can't create chaos in a vacuum.
I come at it from a different angle. You say Shakur makes 0 mistakes, but he's never felt power like this. You mentioned the bad blood narrative. Teofimo Sr. has been very vocal, claiming they haven't lost to a Southpaw in 200 fights.
That includes amateur fights in park gyms, I assume? It feels a little hyperbolic.
It might be hyperbole, but it includes a lifetime of training to kill that specific angle. And let's talk about the mental game. Shakur called Teofimo's power kindergarten power in the lead-up. That is a dangerous underestimation. We are talking about a natural 140-pounder who dropped Vasily Lomachenko's output significantly in the late rounds of their fight. Lomachenko is the gold standard for volume and angles, and Teo froze him. Why? Because when Teo hits you, you stay hit. If Shakur thinks this is kindergarten power, he's going to have a very rude awakening in round 4 when he feels that right hand on his ribs.
I think you're conflating power with effectiveness. Zepeda has power. Zepeda threw 103 punches in back-to-back rounds. He was trying to take Shakur's head off. The surgeon neutralized it. It didn't matter how hard Zepeda hit because he couldn't land flush. Power without delivery is useless.
Zepeda is repetitive. Teo is dynamic. Teo can change the timing, he can fight off the back foot, he can switch hit.
Teo needs a dance partner to look good. That is the fundamental flaw in your value argument. Look at the Sandor Martin fight. Martin refused to engage and Teo looked lost. He was questioning himself in the corner, asking his dad, "Do I still got it?" That moment was caught on a hot mic. Shakur Stevenson is the ultimate refusal to dance fighter. He dissects. He doesn't brawl. The bet here isn't just on Shakur to win. It's specifically on the decision prop. Shakur will not engage in the chaos Teofimo needs to win. He will turn this into a math equation, and Teofimo is historically bad at math.
Sorry, I just don't buy that. You're relying on the Sandor Martin version of Teofimo, the confused, hesitant version. I'm relying on the Josh Taylor version. Josh Taylor was a technician. Josh Taylor was undefeated. And Teo didn't just need him to dance. Teo cut the ring off and battered him. Teo has a volatility index that you can't quantify on a spreadsheet. When the lights are brightest at Madison Square Garden, his hometown, you think he's going to let Shakur turn this into a spreadsheet?
I think you won't have a choice. The crowd can scream all they want, but if you can't cut off the ring, and Teo struggled to cut off the ring against Martin and Ortiz, you can't land the punches.
The crowd won't let him be passive, but more importantly, the judges might not let Shakur get away with it. If Shakur throws 65 punches in 12 rounds again, and Teofimo is throwing 4 or 5 punch combinations that hit arms and shoulders, the optics favor the aggressor. You're paying minus 275 for a guy who might refuse to throw punches if he feels uncomfortable. I'm getting plus 250 on the guy who knocked out Richard Kami, who beat Lomachenko, who beat Taylor. The ceiling for Teofimo is infinitely higher than the floor for Shakur in this specific weight class.
We're coming up on the final bell for our discussion here. Let me summarize the position for the safe money side. The line drop to minus 275 is a gift from the odds makers, courtesy of the public's infatuation with the takeover brand. The smart play is banking on the fighter who limits opponents to 5.4 connects per round. Ignore the noise, ignore the bad blood, and bet on the mathematics. Shakur Stevenson by decision is the play. It's boring, but it pays the rent.
And I maintain that the value is undeniably on the dog. Teofimo Lopez at plus 250 against a smaller man who can be low volume is the definition of a live dog scenario. The outcome probability models are failing to account for Teofimo's history of upsetting the odds in exactly this type of fight. I say take the plus money, enjoy the chaos, and watch the takeover cash a big ticket. You don't bet against a man who thrives on being doubted.
Two very different philosophies for what is sure to be a fascinating night at Madison Square Garden. It really comes down to your risk tolerance, right? Do you want to sleep well at night or do you want to dream big?
January 31st, Data or Destiny. We'll find out which one rules the 140-pound division.
Indeed. Make sure you check the latest odds movements before fight night, because if this trend continues, the value might shift even further. Thanks for listening to the debate.
Cash those tickets.